Hit Refresh by Satya Nadella. Picture this. You're a brilliant young engineer walking into what might be the biggest interview of your life at Microsoft, one of the most powerful tech companies on earth. You've just crushed a full day of brutal technical questions, conquered every whiteboard problem they threw at you, and proved you've got the brains to hang with the best. Then comes your final interview. The manager sits across from you and skips right past all the technical stuff. Instead, he hits you with something completely unexpected. Imagine you see a baby lying in the street, crying. What do? You're an engineer. Your brain works in logic and systems. The answer seems painfully obvious. You call 911. You say, confident you've nailed it. The manager stands up, walks you to the door, and gently puts his arm around your shoulder. You need some empathy, man, he says softly. If a baby is lying on a street crying, you pick up the baby. That young engineer, Satya Nadella, and somehow, despite that cringeworthy answer, he still got the job. 22 years later, he'd become only the third CEO in Microsoft's entire history, inheriting a sleeping giant that many had already written off as past its prime. And that one quality he so obviously bombed in his interview, empathy, would become the secret weapon in one of the most remarkable corporate turnarounds in modern history. Today, we're diving into his incredible journey in Hit Refresh. This isn't your typical business book stuffed with buzzwords and cookie-cutter strategies. This is an intensely personal story about transformation, about a legendary company rediscovering its soul, and about a vision for how technology and humanity can evolve together. Since it dropped, Hit Refresh has sold hundreds of thousands of copies and become essential reading for leaders everywhere, proving that sometimes the softest skills deliver the hardest results. By the time we're done, you'll see how personal tragedy can forge a leader's greatest strength, how a company can find its purpose by looking beyond the bottom line, and you'll discover the one quality you absolutely need to thrive in a future shaped by artificial intelligence, mixed reality, and technologies we're only beginning to imagine. This is about hitting refresh, not just on your computer, but on your entire approach to life, work, and what's coming next. In the early 2010s, Microsoft was limping. Sure, on paper it looked impressive, a multi-billion-dollar empire built on Windows and Office dominance. But inside, the culture had gone toxic. A cartoonist perfectly captured the vibe by drawing Microsoft's org chart not with boxes and lines, but with armed gangs, each division literally pointing guns at each other. The saddest part? Nobody at Microsoft even disagreed with that depiction. The company that once dreamed of putting a computer on every desk had become a follower, not a leader. They'd completely missed the mobile revolution, showed up late to search, and the innovative spirit that built the company was suffocating under layers of bureaucracy and internal warfare. Employees who joined to change the world now spent their days bickering in meetings, while nimbler competitors like Apple and Google shaped the future. This was the mess Satya Nadella inherited in February 2014. After 22 years climbing the ranks at Microsoft, this quiet, thoughtful engineer was handed the keys to a kingdom in crisis. The world watched skeptically. They'd expected a bold outsider to shake things up. Instead, they got an insider who'd spent his entire career swimming in the very culture that needed fixing. How could he possibly turn this ship around? The answer didn't come from a Harvard case study or a management guru. It came from a place of deep pain and profound personal transformation. It came from learning, the hard way, how to actually pick up that crying baby. A few years after joining Microsoft, Satya and his wife Anu were riding high, expecting their first child. They were young, successful, and full of dreams. Their biggest worry? When Anu might return to her architecture career after maternity leave. But during her 36th week of pregnancy, something felt off. The baby wasn't moving as much. They rushed to the ER thinking it was just new parent anxiety. It wasn't. Zayn was born that night via emergency C-section, weighing just 3 pounds. He didn't cry. Asphyxiation in the womb had caused catastrophic brain damage, resulting in severe cerebral palsy. He'd spend his life in a wheelchair, completely dependent on his parents for everything. Satya was crushed. He admits his first thoughts were selfish. He was sad about what had happened to him and Anu, about how their perfect plans had been derailed. It was Anu who gently shifted his perspective. She helped him see this wasn't about what happened to them, it was about what happened to Zain. It was about developing deep, genuine empathy for their son's reality. This became Satya Nadella's real education. Raising a child with profound special needs took him on an emotional journey that reshaped everything. It forced him to see the world through someone else's eyes, to truly understand their struggles and needs. He learned that empathy wasn't just a buzzword for interviews. It was a daily practice, a way of being. Ideas might excite him, he says, but empathy grounds and centers him. He started connecting this human understanding to his work as a technologist. When 3 high school students built a simple Windows app that let Zain control his music by tapping his head against a sensor on his wheelchair, Satya witnessed something profound. For a boy who couldn't move his limbs, this small piece of technology opened a door to joy and independence. The empathy of 3 teenagers had given his son freedom. This became his North Star. This was the soul he wanted to breathe back into Microsoft. It wasn't about crushing Apple or outmaneuvering Google. It was about using technology to empower people. When he finally became CEO, he told his employees that job 1 was renewing the company's culture. He knew top-down orders wouldn't work. He had to change how people thought, how they collaborated, the very heartbeat of the organization. Those warring divisions needed to put down their weapons and start actually listening to each other and to their customers. One of his first moves was transforming the company's most crucial gathering, the weekly senior leadership team meeting. Previously, these meetings were stiff, formal affairs where leaders postured and competed. Satya blew it all up. He moved the meeting from the stuffy boardroom to a relaxed space where game developers hung out. Out went the conference table and chairs. In came comfortable couches arranged in a circle. No laptops allowed. No phones. Nowhere to hide behind screens. Then he brought in an outsider, Dr. Michael Gervais, a psychologist who'd worked with the Seattle Seahawks on mindfulness and peak performance. Dr. Gervais started with a simple exercise. Are you interested in having an extraordinary individual experience? He asked the room full of powerful executives. Everyone nodded, obviously. Great, I need a volunteer to stand up. Dead silence. Complete, awkward, excruciating silence. Here sat a room full of people running multi-billion-dollar divisions, people who considered themselves the smartest in any room, and not one would volunteer. Why? Fear. Fear of looking foolish. Fear of failing. Fear of not appearing brilliant. And underneath it all, a hint of arrogance. I'm too important for these games. This was Microsoft's culture in microcosm, a company of know-it-alls, not learn-it-alls. Slowly, painfully at first, Dr. Gervais broke down those walls. He challenged them, encouraged them, and one by one they opened up. For the first time, these leaders talked about more than just quarterly results. They shared personal passions, spiritual beliefs, struggles with parenting. Satya opened up about Zain and what his son had taught him about empathy. Something shifted that day. These leaders started seeing each other as human beings, not rivals. They realized Microsoft's revival wouldn't come from a single hero. It would take all of them, bringing their whole selves to the mission. The cultural renaissance had begun. This new culture rested on a simple but powerful idea Satya borrowed from psychologist Dr. Carol Dweck, the growth mindset. Dweck's research shows people generally fall into 2 camps. Those with a fixed mindset believe their talents and intelligence are set in stone. They fear failure because it feels like a judgment on who they are. Those with a growth mindset believe abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. They embrace challenges and see failure not as a verdict, but as a lesson. For years, Microsoft had been a know-it-all company dominated by fixed mindsets. You had to be the smartest person in the room. You couldn't admit ignorance. You couldn't admit mistakes. Satya's mission was transforming it into a company of learn-it-alls, driven by curiosity instead of ego. A place where it was safe to say, "I don't know, let's find out," or "I messed up, here's what I learned." This wasn't just motivational poster material. It fundamentally changed how Microsoft operated. Satya modeled this behavior himself in a very public, very uncomfortable way. Early in his tenure, he spoke at the Grace Hopper celebration of women in computing. Someone asked his advice for women uncomfortable asking for raises. He gave a rambling, tone-deaf answer about having faith in the system and the good karma of not asking. He even called it a superpower. The backlash was swift and brutal. He got torched across media and social networks, and rightfully so. The old Microsoft might have issued a carefully worded non-apology and moved on. But Satya did something different. Within hours, he sent an email to the entire company. No spin, no excuses. "I answered that question completely wrong," he wrote. He owned his mistake, acknowledged his unconscious bias, and turned it into a teaching moment for himself and everyone at Microsoft. He leaned into the failure and learned from it publicly, showing everyone what a growth mindset looks like under fire. This new mindset unlocked 3 crucial strategic shifts. First came customer obsession. The company stopped obsessing over competitors and started obsessing over customers. It wasn't about beating Apple anymore. It was about serving people who used Apple products. This led to one of the most shocking moments of the new Microsoft. At a conference, Satya Nadella walked on stage, reached into his pocket, and pulled out an iPhone. The audience gasped. He then demonstrated how the iPhone became even better, running Microsoft software, Outlook, Word, Excel. The message was crystal clear. We'll meet our customers wherever they are. We're not fighting device wars anymore. We're in the business of empowering people, period. This philosophy extended even to old enemies. For years, Microsoft had treated the open-source Linux operating system like a mortal threat. But customers loved Linux and built their businesses on it. A truly customer-obsessed Microsoft had to embrace it. Soon, a slide appeared in presentations that would have been unthinkable years earlier. Microsoft Heart Linux. The company that once fiercely protected its closed ecosystem became one of the world's biggest open-source contributors. They learned to grow the pie for everyone, instead of just fighting for their slice. The second major shift was becoming mobile-first and cloud-first. This was a fundamental worldview change. For decades, Microsoft had been a PC-centric company. Everything revolved around Windows. Satya recognized the future wasn't about a single device. It was about the mobility of human experience across all devices, powered by the cloud. The cloud is basically a global network of massive data centers providing the storage and computing power for everything we do online, from streaming Netflix to running businesses on Microsoft Azure. When Satya took over, Microsoft was dangerously behind Amazon in cloud services. It was a small, struggling part of the company, and many insiders wanted to abandon it for the traditional, profitable server business. This was Satya's young men and fire moment. He references Norman Maclean's book about smokejumper firefighters facing a massive blaze. Their leader knew survival meant lighting a small escape fire and lying in the ashes, a counterintuitive strategy. But because he hadn't built enough trust with his team, they refused to follow. They ran, and they died. Satya faced a similar challenge. He had to convince his team to run toward the small, uncertain fire of the cloud and away from the seemingly safe but ultimately doomed comfort of their old business. He didn't bring in his own team. He worked to convince existing leaders from within, listening and building a shared vision. The cloud wasn't a threat to their server business, it was its future. By embracing a hybrid model where customers could use both private servers and public cloud, Microsoft could offer something competitors couldn't. He changed the platform name from Windows Azure to Microsoft Azure, signaling it was for everyone, not just Windows users. He pushed the team to embrace Linux on their platform. The bet paid off massively. Today, Microsoft's cloud business is a multi-billion-dollar powerhouse, competing head-to-head with Amazon, and serving as the foundation for everything the company does. The third shift was betting big on the future. With renewed culture and a strong cloud foundation, Satya greenlit investments in technologies that had been languishing for years. He believed companies must lean into uncertainty and take risks on the next wave of innovation. He focused on 3 transformative technologies that will reshape our world for decades. First is mixed reality. You've heard of virtual reality, where you put on a headset and get completely immersed in a digital world. Microsoft's vision with HoloLens is different. It doesn't block out reality. It blends digital and physical worlds together, turning your field of view into an infinite computer screen. Satya describes his first prototype experience. He put on the headset and suddenly stood on the surface of Mars, fed data directly from NASA's Curiosity rover. He could see his own feet on the dusty red planet, walk around and inspect Martian rocks. Yet he could still see the real room, the desks, the people around him. One leadership team member was so moved she cried. He instantly saw this wasn't just for gaming. This could revolutionize medicine, letting surgeons overlay 3D organ models during operations. It could transform education, letting students explore the inside of a human cell or walk through ancient Rome. It could change how we work, letting architects walk through holographic building models before breaking ground. This, he believes, is the ultimate computing experience. The second bet is artificial intelligence. We all know AI through digital assistants like Siri or Alexa, but Satya's vision goes way beyond that. The AI debate often gets trapped in extremes. Either friendly robots do all our chores, or evil machines take over. Satya argues for a third path: humans with machines. AI should augment human capability, not replace it. Consider Saqib Sheikh, a blind Microsoft engineer. He and his team developed an AI app running on smart glasses that essentially sees the world for him, describing it through an earpiece. It reads restaurant menus. It tells him the expressions on colleagues, faces in meetings. It even helps him find loved ones in crowded parks. This is AI as empowerment, expanding human experience. But as AI grows more powerful, Satya argues we need clear, ethical guardrails. He proposes principles. I must assist humanity and respect human autonomy. It must be transparent so we understand how it makes decisions. It must guard against bias so it doesn't perpetuate prejudices. And it needs algorithmic accountability so humans can undo unintended harm. He's calling for a new social contract for the AI age. The third, most mind-bending bet is quantum computing. If today's computers are candles, quantum computers are laser beams. Classical computers use bits that are either 0 or 1. Quantum computers use qubits that can be 0, 1, or both simultaneously. This seemingly small difference lets them perform certain calculations exponentially faster than any computer existing today. This isn't about building faster laptops for email. This is about solving humanity's biggest, most complex problems. A quantum computer could simulate molecules with perfect accuracy, helping us discover new medicines and cure diseases like cancer. It could help invent new materials for hyper-efficient batteries, or solve climate change by discovering better ways to produce fertilizer. It's so powerful it could crack today's strongest encryption in minutes, but also create new, unbreakable security. Microsoft is in a global race with Google, IBM, and even governments to build the first scalable universal quantum computer. These 3 shifts, renewed culture based on empathy and growth mindset, business strategy centered on cloud and customer obsession, and bold future bets, are the pillars of Satya Nadella's Microsoft transformation. But underlying everything is a deeper philosophy about a company's role in the world. He calls it the trust equation. In a world where our lives increasingly happen online, and corporations have access to vast amounts of personal data, trust is the most valuable currency. He believes trust comes from a combination of empathy, shared values, and safety and reliability, all demonstrated consistently over time. This belief faced a major test during the 2014 Sony Pictures hack. Hackers, allegedly backed by North Korea, attacked Sony in retaliation for the satirical movie The Interview. They released embarrassing emails and threatened any theater showing the film. Sony, facing massive losses and security threats, pulled the theatrical release. Microsoft and other tech companies faced a choice: help distribute the film online and stand up for free speech, even if it meant becoming the next target. Their own security engineers warned of enormous risk. But Satya and his team decided some values are non-negotiable. They believed boldly supporting constitutional rights aligned with Microsoft's core purpose. On Christmas Day, working around the clock to secure their networks, they released The Interview on Xbox Video. It was a principled stand, demonstrating they'd put values ahead of short-term safety. This raises the final, perhaps most important question Nadella wrestles with throughout Hit Refresh: what's the role of a multinational corporation in our modern world? He argues it's no longer enough for global companies to simply enter countries, extract profits, and leave. In an age of rising inequality and anti-globalization sentiment, companies have a responsibility to create local economic opportunity everywhere they operate. His goal is for Microsoft to be the platform provider underneath the world's entrepreneurial energy. They make the tools that help other people make things and make things happen. Whether it's young women in Cairo building apps to help Syrian refugees, or a startup in India using Microsoft AI to predict heart conditions in rural villages, the mission remains the same: use technology as a democratizing force, spreading opportunity to everyone, not just a privileged few. At its heart, Satya Nadella's story radiates optimism. It's about believing in people's power to learn and grow. It's about believing a giant company can still have a soul. And it's about believing technology, guided by human empathy, can be a force for good. He ends the book returning to that haunting first question: why do I exist? And he extends it to all of us. He asks us to find our own passions, our own sense of purpose, and connect them to something larger than ourselves. Because when we do that, we don't just hit refresh on technology, we hit refresh on our potential to change the world. As we close Hit Refresh, it's tempting to get swept up in the high-tech magic of quantum computing and mixed reality. But that would mean missing the book's most profound lesson. The most powerful technology Satya Nadella writes about isn't hardware or code. It's empathy. This is what makes Hit Refresh so remarkable. It's a book from the CEO of one of the world's most powerful tech companies, arguing, persuasively, that our humanity is our greatest asset. In an age when we're all anxious about machines taking our jobs and algorithms making our decisions, Nadella reminds us the skills that will become most scarce, and therefore most valuable, are uniquely human: creativity, judgment, collaboration, and above all, empathy. The story of his journey with his son Zane is the book's beating heart, giving his corporate strategy authentic weight. His focus on culture isn't a management fad. It's a deeply held conviction born from lived experience. He learned firsthand that to truly connect with and help another person, you must first see the world from their perspective. He then had the wisdom to apply that intensely personal lesson to a 100,000-person corporation. The shift from know-it-all to learn-it-all culture is more than clever wordplay. It's a blueprint for remaining relevant in the 21st century. So what can we actually do with this? How can we apply these lessons right now? First, consciously adopt a growth mindset. Next time you face a challenge or make a mistake, ask yourself, is this a verdict on my abilities or an opportunity to learn? Simply reframing failure as feedback can unlock incredible personal growth. As Nadella showed after his karma blunder, true strength isn't about never falling. It's about how you get back up, what you learn, and how you use that lesson to improve. Second, practice active empathy. This doesn't mean agreeing with everyone, it means seeking to understand them. In your next conversation, try listening not just to respond, but to truly hear what the other person is saying and feeling. Whether you're designing a product, leading a team, or just being a good friend. Everything starts with understanding others' needs. Finally, ask yourself that same existential question: why do I exist? What's the unique contribution only you can make? Nadella believes true satisfaction comes from connecting personal passions to larger purpose. It's about using your individual talents not just for yourself, but to empower others. Whether you're a student, artist, entrepreneur, or engineer, you have the ability to make things that help other people make things and make things happen. That was our journey through Hit Refresh by Satya Nadella. We've covered the main ideas today, but a summary is like looking at a travel brochure. It shows you pictures but can't give you the feeling of actually being there. The real power of this book lives in those quiet, reflective moments of reading it yourself, where Nadella's journey becomes a mirror for your own. If his story of transformation, of finding purpose in adversity, and of leading with humanity has resonated with you, I encourage you to grab a copy. It's more than a business book. It's a guide to leading a more thoughtful, empathetic, and impactful life in an age of profound change. You'll find the link in the description. And if you found this journey valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It shows us we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next deep dive into another world-changing book from the Billionaire's Bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.